Everyone. This is the Forms HTML Forms lecture for LIS 861 that feels like I've been promising you guys for weeks. And as I mentioned previously, what I'm going to talk about in this lecture is how you use the HTML form elements to create something like what we're looking at on the screen, which is a web form. And you can control, this is what you can control with the HTML. You can control the input boxes where people are going to type the information you're trying to collect with your form, and you can style the text and you can style the colors. We're going to look at a couple different examples that are based on exercises in the Head First HTML book that some of you may have tried out by now. And basically the way forms work is a person visits a web page and they see some boxes to fill in, and then they click a button and that sends the form. And usually that's the post action in the form HTML code. And what happens is, though, that causes the browser to package up all the data that the person has typed into the form, and they send it over to this processing script on the server, and that creates another web page with the summary of the information. The other thing that can happen with web forms is that the data that someone types in can go into a spreadsheet or a database, and that's what we'll look at with Google Forms, that using Google Forms you can really easily, without any programming knowledge, collect form data and have it go into a spreadsheet. And that's because the scripting, the processing script, is actually on Google's servers. So let's look at this one. This is a real simple one that I based on Head First HTML, and here we're just testing out the form. And so I type in my name and my last name, and then this isn't a really smart form, but it's a little bit smart, because if I try to do this, and then I pick a date to pick up my prize, and then I click test the form, it tells me I haven't entered a real email address because it's looking for the @ sign and some kind of extension like gmail.com. And now test the form, and I get a reply that I have filled out the form. And if we go back and look at the code that makes this, it's really pretty simple. Here's the beginning part. The form opens up and the method is post, and it's sending it to that contest PHP, which is the processing script. And then here's the text where it said type in your name. And the one thing to know about this input, which is the main form element, input is an inline element, so if you want there to be line breaks, you have to enclose your inputs in paragraphs, or at least put a BR down here. And you can say what type of input it is, text, and then the value. This is for you as the form collector. It tells you what what kind of information you're creating: first name, last name. And then down here you can see input type email, and then input type checkbox. They're radio buttons, they're text areas, which is a bigger box, so there are just all kinds of different inputs you can use, and we'll look at a whole lot more of them in the other more fully styled form example from Head First HTML. And then if we go all the way to the bottom here, here's what makes the submit button. This is the submit button, and this defaults. If I didn't fill in a value, it would say submit or submit query, and if you change this value to test the form, then it displays differently. So instead of my form down here, having it say submit query, it says test the form, so you can make it make more sense for your own personal uses. Here's another more developed one, the Starbuzz Bean Machine. And you can see this one's got a drop down, so you can choose different, and we'll look at the code for that. You have radio buttons where you can select which type you want. You have numbers of bags, and I'm not sure how high it goes. I think it goes up to about 10. I don't know, we'll look in the code. And then you can pick an arrival date, and this one's got the little calendar is opening up, and this is very simple. We'll look at the code again. Even though this looks pretty fancy, it's really easy to give someone a little calendar to pick from. And it's got a ship to, you can add customer comments, and again, it says they've customized the ordering button. It says order now instead of submit, and if I try to submit this without filling out the other information like my name, my address, my city, and then see it's filling in a bunch of, then I can do order now, and it'll tell it, here's what my response. But if we go back and look a little more at the code, we can see how they did some of this stuff. So this is pretty ordinary, just a link to a style sheet, pretty normal looking style sheet, and I don't think we're going to go there. But so these look like what you've already done in HTML and CSS, just linking to a style sheet, and you can use regular HTML elements, heading 1, heading 2. Here's our form again. It's saying here's the action, here's the processor, and here this time this process order PHP is on a server. It's on it's out there on the web, and if you download this to your own computer it won't work because PHP needs to be on a server and post. And so here's how they did the choose the beans, where it's the drop down, it's using the option, and then here it's input type radio button, and you can just click whole or ground, and then here yeah, it's number of bags, minimum 1, maximum 10. You can't order 0 bags on this form. And then here, input type date, name date. And so that's all this single line of code right here is what made our nice drop down with the calendar. All it took was this much. And then here's your checkbox where you can check gift wrap or no gift wrap. And then here's all the name, address, city, state, zip, and then that grayed out text with these examples to sort of give a person an idea what kind of thing goes into these fields. Is this placeholder, Buckaroo Banzai, Banzai Institute, phone number, all that kind of stuff. And then here they're required. It's required. So that's what makes it not let me submit the form without submitting those things. So that's just a pretty quick overview of the HTML coding that you can use to create a form. And I'm going to make a second part of this demo and talk a little bit about ways that you can get forms that someone else has created, or where someone else like Google or SurveyMonkey has the processing scripts on their servers, and then you just set your form to access that.